Okay, hope you can see this. We've got two wires here coming off of one wire. You want one to be sort of representational of positive and negative. And what we're going to do is solder these two wires to the single wire. Real basic, very old, dirty soldering iron here, but just to prove that it can be done with pretty much anything. If I'm still plugged in. I may not be plugged in. I'll have to give that a second. Anyways, what we're going to be doing is soldering two chips on. These are the cruddy chips, cruddy LEDs that I'm using on the tail light. So I'm going to make a spare for myself, and positive will go on to positive, and positive will go on to positive. Then we'll bend those back. You can bend the wires apart. You could use the telephone wire, but I'm using a stranded wire off a Porsche harness actually. And basically what we're going to do is solder the positive to the positive contact. They're very small pads, but what we're going to do is tin the tips of these first, tin these, and we'll do those negatives as well. But first we're going to solder this, then we're going to put some shrink wrap on it to make sure it's watertight. This is going to be a spare. Then the leads at this end will go to the feed from the buck converter, which will take it from 12 volts from your battery directly through your ignition switch for the ground, and then out of the ignition switch for your ground to this lead here, the negative. And then the positive will go direct from your battery. So just imagine it's backwards. So the battery is basically acting as your ground now, on the ground for the positive ground system. So what we're going to do is hopefully be able to solder this now, and our soldering iron is hot again, so obviously plugged in. Let's get this going here. Totally lame soldering iron, folks, sorry. Anyways, I think that's got bigger issues. Now, I use these for my shop lights in the garage too now. I hooked up 8 of them, all fed by 2.7 volts, and I can run that off 12 volts, and it lights up pretty much half the shop, as much as the fluorescent tube does, so I was pretty happy with that today. And there's many uses for these. These are very, very cheap, not expensive at all. There we go. There we go. Okay, so now we'll do the negative, and then we'll heat shrink these. Put on our heat shrink tubing. I was losing a lot of heat shrink tubing lately, and then I found a bunch in the bathtub, and it turns out that the cat has been tearing around the apartment with heat shrink tube lengths. He likes the long ones and the small gauge ones, but that's where it's been disappearing to, so there's probably some buried in, storage or something underneath the bed. But we'll just put these on. Now this will be easy to twist in if I have to on the road, if for whatever reason it burns out. It hasn't burnt out yet, but just in case, want to have a spare with me. And I'll just feed this into the supply from the buck converter, knowing that it'll be 2.7 volts. Now we're going to tin these first. There we go. I have to get a new soldering tip, I think, tomorrow. One of those major investments. Maybe I'll get 2. Okay, hold on here. There we go. So we've tinned 4 leads now, 2 negative and 2 positive. Might have to get your specs on to see these. Hold the soldering iron away from the LED. It is heat tolerable, but not that much. You do not want to touch it with the soldering iron, at least. And just be careful to heat up the solder enough to hold it on the spot, just like that. Take the positive of this side, the tinned end, heat up the tin end, resting the soldering iron on the side, because it is aluminum heat sink, this, but the contact is copper, so, or gold. Then take your negative. See, this is the wrong way to do it because I'm going to be close to the LED. So we want to turn these around, go from this side. We want to make sure that we're going to have them in the right direction as well. There we go. Hold that on. Heat the solder enough to touch the plate. Not enough. There we go. Now it's attached. We'll take our second negative lead here. Watch your fingers. Heat up that solder. Oops. Like I said, watch your fingers. You can use a third hand if you have one at home, like an alligator clip third hand to do all this. Probably recommend that. Might be a little bit easier, but I've been doing a lot of soldering in the field of my multi-copters, so got a little bit of practice here. There we go. And those are nice and snug. The aluminum actually acts as a great heat sink. Now, I could probably power these off of a 3.2 volt battery that I have here, if I can find one with open contacts. This is a small lithium battery. And there are some contacts. You don't want to short these lithium batteries, they will explode. Well, not explode, but they basically catch on fire. So there's our contacts there, negative and positive. Now I hope that you can see this. I'll probably have to put the lights in a position where you can see them. Now these will just go at the top of the tail light. 279 tail light, just like that. You can put some double-sided tape on the back of them, have them mounted on your tail light beehive like that. And then the brake light, like I said, I really recommend one of these red 9-watt LEDs. That's what I'm using, and I point that right in the beehive with the bolt that's there. It goes right into the socket of the old bulb holder. So that's a really good fix, and it's really, really pretty when it goes on. Okay, let's check this out now. Negative and positive. Very bright. So there you go. Extremely bright. An excellent tail light. And you could run it off an AA battery. So there's your wired up running light. Connect those two wires whichever way you want. See y'all later.